Hey y'all, it's your buddy Choppadong. It is a Wednesday afternoon, and we're going to talk some main slate MLB DFS made easy. Brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com, one stop shopping. All things daily fantasy sports, MMA, PGA, doesn't matter what you play. We've got it set up for you with content, tools, and coaching to make you a better DFS player. Head down into the description there, use the free link to join our Discord group. Like, subscribe the video, all that stuff that I asked you to do. Comment, I'll say hi back. Whatever it is you want to do to interact with me and pull some information out of me, it's an open book. There's a lot of premium information if you want to become a VIP, of course, and that's where you access all the other coaches, all of the tools, every sport, all that stuff that I talk about all the time. And there's a coupon code in there, CHOP, CHOP, 10% discount each and every month. You remain a member. It's just that simple. But when we talk about MLB DFS made simple, we talk about a routine, an easy to establish routine that you can do day in and day out that gets you on the right plays. Does it work every day? No. Baseball's volatile. But does it work a lot? Yes. And this is how you can build a bankroll, whether you play cash games or tournaments or something in between those hybrid lineups like league play, 100-man leagues, which I love. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and show it to you right now. Since we got some time, it isn't going to take long to blow through that slate and blow through that routine. It never does. I track my contests on little sheets like this. And if you look at the MLB2, this is the second session. We did one before that was about 87 contests, proved that these are profitable endeavors. The trick is you got to win some, and we've started off pretty cold. If I come in, what is this, about 45 contests, $45 in, $1 each. 100-mans are a little bit unprofitable. 50-50s are profitable. Triple ups, quintuple ups, a little bit unprofitable each. 10-man and 20-man leagues are darn near break even. And that's only because where we're lacking, if you look at all of these, this is the place where I've placed in 100-man leagues. 33rd place, 58th place, 88th place, 8th place, etc., etc., etc. You don't see a lot of top fives. That doesn't matter in a cash game like a 50-50, but it does matter some in a 10-man league, of course, in a 20-man league. But even triple ups, you've got to send that money, you got to send those lineups deep. And we've done okay, but we haven't had that good hot run. I thought we were getting ready to go on one last week and a half ago. It fizzled right back out, and here we are again, kind of toiling around, not getting anywhere. We're posting a lot in the top half, so we're close. We're posting a good bit in the top third, so we're close. But we just aren't in those 100-man leagues getting into that top 12% or that top 5% often enough to really trigger the good money. But it only takes a couple of pops. And that can happen at any given time, and it'll put us right back on track. If I had won a couple of these with a little bit of luck, then we're up $50 or so, and we're sitting there at $75 out looking at 45 in saying, oh my God, these things are the greatest things since sliced bread. But being that it's only 45 lineups in, it's not much of a sample size. If we look up at the other one, it didn't get going for a while either until somewhere kind of in the middle. Then it started catching up. We put 87 in, we took 150 out. So it will happen eventually. I've posted top 1% lineups more often than 1% of the time. It's just a matter of time before it happens. May take 200 contests, may take 400. I don't know. That's why you play beneath your bankroll, and that's why you play in contests that you know you can beat. And the only way you can find those contests is to track them. You track them, you figure out where you fit, and then you start playing more of those contests accordingly. Like right now, the way I'm playing, I should be playing more 50-50s than anything. I'm just not doing it because I know these others are going to turn around. But if you came to me and said, what should I be doing? That's what I would tell you. So I would say, put at least 2/3 of your money in those 50-50s, get some of that money out, make it a profitable grind while you're waiting for that other stuff to kick in, whatever it is you want to play, triple up, quintuple up, league play, 100-man league, small GPP, whatever, because it will eventually get there if you follow this routine. And this routine is really, really simple. We come up here to the time slot and we filter off all of those later game. Oh, come on, slow boy. We filter off all of these early games so that we're only dealing with the main slate. Right? I don't know how many games it is tonight, 6, 10, something like that. But we slide over to the pitching tab and we take the Chop Shop K-score and we sort largest to smallest. Bring the big one to the top. Garrett Cole, hello. If he doesn't have shit on his fingers tonight, he probably is going to be able to grip the ball like normal and have a decent start. If you've got these types of track records or sample sizes, he's pretty effective. But if you don't trust him or you don't want to pay that price for him because you feel like he's going to come out flat since they're looking like through a microscope at his fingernails right now, Zach Eflin, Shane McClanahan, probably small sample size. Lance Lynn, these are alternatives that you can then use to get up there in that K score, have some potential. But along with that comes a higher W score, right? So a Lance Lynn makes sense. He's got a lower W score down here with Garrett Coles, not quite as volatile as a Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin has the strikeout matchup today over a Lance Lynn, a $2,600 discount over Lance Lynn, but he's going to get destroyed more often than Lance Lynn as well. So you've got to take that into consideration. If you're playing cash where you don't want the risk, you might opt for a Lance Lynn. If you're playing a GPP where you want that ceiling game, you might roll for Eflin in the $2,000, okay? This is all you're doing when you're thinking through this slate. You might dip over here and look for some guys that are giving up some bombs and some whips when you're looking to stack against pitchers. But when you're looking to take the pitcher, you're just looking for something over about 500. It doesn't mean these guys are off the table. There's not a lot offered at the top today. It just means these are the guys you're going to lean on first. When you're ready to move on to bats, you go large to smallest with W score. You come over here, and then all of a sudden these guys come to the top. And this is usually the bottom of the barrel flipped on its head, right? They say that the cream rises to the top, but guess what also floats? Pond scum, right? So when I'm looking at these numbers, I'm looking at home run per 9. These usually pop right to the top. Whips, high Sierras pop to the top. And now I'm sitting here looking at cheaper pitchers as well. Those things all line up to be bad results for the pitcher, good results for the bats. If they're good results for the bats, stack them. Mets, Boston, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Chicago, Washington, Detroit. These guys should all be on your radar tonight. Maybe even Cincinnati, KC. These guys should all be on your radar tonight in some fashion. Doesn't mean you're going to stack them all. Doesn't mean that they are the best stack. It doesn't mean they're going to be chalky. In fact, a lot of times they're not, which is a double bonus. That's a beautiful thing when they're under the radar. But this is generally what you're looking at when it comes to these stacks. You can also go to our leverage stacking tool here in the MLB tab, and you can start seeing who we are telling you is a combination of salary and ownership and projected point total and value and all of that stuff. We can tell you who should generate the most leverage in tournaments. You don't necessarily want to use those guys in cash. If you're using cash, you're going to want to come over here to the domination station optimizer, which I'll show you here in a bit. But we're going to focus, after we've seen some of those pitchers and some of those stacks, we're going to go hot hitters. Hot hitters, again, you take the time, you cut down here to the filter, and you knock off those early games. Easy peasy. Now that I've got those guys, I want to come down here to where I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to want about 20 to 40 names. Anywhere in that range works for me. And the way that I find that is I take these last 7-day numbers and I go greater than 400. Needs to be a decimal point, 400. It's a 400 WOBA. Over 400 WOBA for the week. Over 200 ISO power numbers for the week. So I've got guys that are hitting over 400 WOBA elite, over 200 ISO elite, and I've just cut down my list. So I don't know how many names this is. It's way too many for a big slate like tonight. So I got to cut it down a little bit more. How do I cut it down? Well, I make it a little harder to qualify for. So I come up to maybe a 425. Let's see what that does. That should shorten that list down. We're getting there. So let's come up a little bit more in the ISO numbers. 7-day numbers I said. And we'll eventually get there. 0.240. I don't know. I'm picking numbers at this point. I'm just trying to get it to the top 20 to 40 bats. So we're kind of getting there. So let's just call that. That's probably not 40 names today. We take these, go A to Z. Let me shrink this list down just a smidge so we can fit more names on that page. And now what I'm looking at is Atlanta 1 bat, Baltimore 4 bats. Are they in a good spot? Were they one of the stacks that we were looking at? If so, you might want to really, really focus on them. If not, maybe you make them a really, really GPP contrarian move like a nickels or a dime or a quarter type play, something like that. Chicago, a couple spots. Cincinnati, a couple spots. Detroit, 3 spots. Detroit was on that list. They were a little down the list, so was Cincinnati. These are the bats I would include in those stacks if I was doing so. LA, Miami, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Philly, Seattle. 3 Seattle bats. Interesting. So nothing super, super big really standing out, but these are guys I would go into my optimizer and I would start boosting. Let's say I'm playing Fanduel and I want to play baseball and I want to get over here on the main slate. Once this thing loads up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up those pitchers and I'm going to start boosting their projections because that's going to give me more of those guys in my lineups. Once the team loads up here, little turd's lagging. Come on, baby. All right, guess it's not going to play nice with me. There we go. Of course we're waiting on it. But that said, when we have ownership projections and things like that, I can also do a couple of other little tricky things. There we go. I don't know what took so long, but I'm going to take these team numbers and I'm going to sort them top to bottom, alphabetize these numbers. It is really not playing nice with me right now. Unbelievable. There we go. Now, even if it's reverse alphabetized, you can go down this list, and when you find these Washington bats on this list, Soto and Gomes, then you just come down here and you find Soto and you boost him, and you find Gomes and you boost him 15% all the way through. And that changes this baseline projection number, right? This 12.21, it was a 10.54, it's now a 12.12. And all you've done is given that a little bit of a boost so that if you randomize your projections or whatever it is that you do with them, you're pulling these guys further to the front. You're going to change this value number, this fantasy point per dollar number, which is going to, in effect, trick the optimizer into liking him even more. When it does that, you're going to see more of him in your lineup. Sometimes it doesn't pull them in, that's fine. I'm going to lean on the projections from here on out. But I am going to start doing things like building numbers, and you have to see the other videos for this, but building numbers with projected ownership caps. Things like start with 10 lineups and build those lineups at this number here and see if I can produce them. If I can produce something chalky like that and get 10 lineups, then I can build as a higher number from 200 to 220 to 240 to 260. And if all of my lineups are over the 260 and that's the highest number I can create, then I can come back down off of that number. I can start with my cash games, my head-to-heads, my 50-50s, etc., and build for the high chalk. Maybe make a pivot or two. Maybe I don't like Giancarlo Stanton tonight. I'd rather see somebody else because Giancarlo's been cold. We did that last week with Miguel Sano. He was so cold. Everybody was on him. We were like, you're dumb. Why are you doing this? And it was a proper pivot, especially in a cash game. But if I move off of these guys, I'm going to get a little bit lower ownership. The more I move off of that, the more I stack, the more I take contrarian stacks, the more I take the non-chalk pitchers, etc. Then I'm going to start going more towards the lower end of ownership, and I'm going to start generating some leverage. So let's just pretend that a 202 here is the highest projected lineup I could build. Because what I would honestly do is I'd come back through here, I would change this to like 240, and I would build again. But if 202 is the actual highest number I can get, then what am I going to, for cash games, I want to tuck up as close to that 200 as I can. Again, I might make a pivot or two. When I look down here, maybe I don't want Garrett Cole. Maybe Urias has been hot. Freeman, maybe he's been cold. Suarez has maybe been cold. I might take those guys out in favor of somebody who's got a little bit more ownership, or somebody who maybe even has a little less ownership but is definitely in a better matchup, or somebody who's likely to perform tonight a little bit better. Those types of pivots will come off of the ownership numbers just a smidge and will land you on similar lineups for chalk, but with a difference or two. So when everybody else has a bad night, you're still at the top of that bell curve. You're still at the forward end of that 100-man league, and you might eke into the top 50 and cash your ticket. Now, for league play, 10-man leagues, 20-man leagues, 100-man leagues, whatever, we're going to start stacking, and we're going to start getting further off the chalk. And the way I would set that up, if I put all my stacks in place and I liked all my 4x3s and selected my teams and whatnot, I'm going to come all the way down to about 20% or so of that number. So 20% of 200 is 40. So I'm going to come down to 160. And then I would build all of my stack lineups with that in place. And for tournaments, I'd come down to like half. I'm coming down to like 100. Everything now, well, all I'm really doing is I'm weeding off the stuff that's using too much low-owned stuff. Too many 2% guys, too many 5% guys. I'm going to still need some chalk to get into these tournaments because the chalk generally lifts you up and gets you somewhat close to the money. It's the lower owned pivots that push you past it. And the bigger the tournament, the more people you're trying to beat, whether it's 10,000 people or 100,000 people, the freakier you got to get. And at the top end, my secret tip to you today, the very, very top end, a lot of times you need to start unstacking again because you need to hit all your one-offs perfectly to make it work. If this is the type of advice, the type of knowledge you appreciate, you got to give me a like, you got to give me a subscribe, and you got to ask me questions because I will respond and I will get back to you. But I do it better inside DFSArmy.com, so consider becoming a VIP today. Get in here and let's make you a better player. Peace out, homies. This is Wednesday. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll come back at you tomorrow.